the Illegitimate Game with Brother Derek. This is the first episode. This is the first segment. Trying to introduce this concept. But the illegitimate game is basically when you get involved in an idea, an institution, or a pattern of behavior. And it's a game you shouldn't be playing, but we all play it. We've all done it. I've done it myself. But you see other people involved in it and you see them winning. And for some reason, we search for validation and we search to belong. And we don't want to follow God because his ways seem to be hard. Truth be told, it's about control. But the illegitimate game, it's a game that it looks exciting. We're seeking pleasure and we're seeking fame and fortune. So we also want to do what everybody else is doing because it's always easier to be a follower. It's harder to be a leader, even though they tell us to be leaders. But the ones telling us to lead, they're following their own game. So what happens with the illegitimate game is you learn how to be corrupt. You learn how to break God's rules. You learn how to lie, cheat, and steal. But because everyone else is doing it, it becomes okay because everybody else is doing it. And while we're playing this game, we corrupt our souls, we violate our own conscience, and we become this avatar. When we get into the game, we come pure because God made us pure. And our parents try to teach us the right way, even if they don't know it. But we become these avatars to fit into the game. And slowly and surely, you kill your soul, you kill your independence, you violate your own conscience, and you become something else to play the game. But it's a game you never should have played. And by the time you realize you need to get out, we've learned so much to get in that it's too hard to get out. And then the game rewards you, so you stay. And this applies, it ain't just the streets, it ain't just selling drugs. This could happen in church. You could belong to the wrong church, but you don't want to get out because you call them family now. This could be your corporate job where you stab people in the back to get promoted. This could be in the hospital. You know you're selling drugs these people don't need. It's the same concept. But because of money, because of that 401k, because everybody else is doing it, you keep going. But it's the illegitimate game, but then when God tells you to stop, you think it's the devil trying to steal your life and steal your foundation that you built. But it ain't. It's really God, but you don't want to hear it now. It's too late. And there's many different elements to the illegitimate game. There's going to be multiple episodes here. I can't talk about it all at one time. It's too much because it applies to our marriages, our children, even college. It's everywhere. So this time I'm just going to talk about the epitome of pride when you become your own God. I went through this myself when I was a 5%er. It didn't last long because God don't play. And when I heard God, I had to humble myself because the real God is not going to leave you there. But this one is I am God. We become our own gods. And we do this in various ways. We do it with our wireless technology because now I could choose my life. I could choose my influences. I could choose who I want to talk to. I could choose my knowledge. And with wireless technology, we also attach ourselves to people God doesn't want in your life. With wireless technology, we find ways to circumvent the providence of God. Because I remember back in 95 when I was wilding out, there were people God took out of my life and I couldn't find them. But if I was a 16, 17-year-old today, I could find people God doesn't want me attached to because of Facebook, Instagram, and all these other social media apps. So I know for a fact there were times God took people out of my life because he didn't want it around me. And it was easier to do that in the 90s because we didn't have technology, we didn't have social media. If I didn't run into you at 7-Eleven or at the club, I'm not going to find you. So now we can connect to anybody and we can get all kinds of knowledge that God doesn't even want you to have. Because knowledge pursues you now. Once upon a time, we had to go to the library to get it. Now that knowledge pursues you. And you could be exposed to things God doesn't want you to see. And you could be exposed to people God doesn't even want in your life. With this wireless technology and, being able to call yourself a God, you could also choose the friends you want. You could choose the people who influence you. You can choose who you want to be. And you don't even have to pray about it. Because you can just go online, find your friends. You could create your own tribe, your little Facebook group. Like I met this one night I met this couple. They had belonged to this Facebook group where they all have their little private clubs and there's a whole bunch of married people that want to cheat. So now they just use the Facebook group and they pick which hotel everybody gonna link up at, and it's 30, 40 of them. And they're all married, they all leave their kids, and they hook up out of town. Like, this is stuff that you probably shouldn't be doing. That's the illegitimate game. Married couples are supposed to be faithful, supposed to be able to trust each other. But when you become your own God and all you care about is your pleasure, you can remove the morals and ethics and do whatever it is you want to do. With this new world that we have now, when you could do what you want to do, fix your problems yourself, now we just use medication to heal ourselves. Instead of changing your lifestyle, instead of changing your habits, you can just use medication and continue smoking. You can use this medication and continue drinking. But if you changed your lifestyle, you would heal. Then you wouldn't need the medication. So sometimes we put Band-Aids on things that should be eradicated. We also accompany ourselves with dysfunctional people. Because if you're dysfunctional and all my friends are dysfunctional, now we're normal. And nobody could tell us anything different. As long as we can continue getting what we want. Because when you become God, you're just pursuing your own pleasure. You're pursuing your own lifestyle. And when you have your own influences and your own judges, no one can tell you you're wrong. And the first person to tell you when you're wrong, you're going to consider them to be a hater. Because it's all about you. Maybe you should change your behavior. But we don't do that until we want to. Because I am God, and I don't have anybody telling me what to do. There's nobody telling me right or wrong, because I am the one who determines what's right and what's wrong. We talk to therapists instead of real people who know us. I know quite a few people who do that. I tried it myself. It didn't give me the desired results, because talking to the therapist, I could share what I wanted to share. The therapist didn't know me personally, so the therapist didn't know if I was telling the truth or lying. And that's the part of the game that I don't really like, because I'm sitting there trying to find healing, but this person can't heal me because this person doesn't even know me. They're just going through their protocol. They're just going through what they learned in school. And they can't deliver you from something they haven't experienced themselves. So I'm not totally against therapy. If you have nothing or nobody, talk to somebody. I'm sure there's therapists out there with good, clean hearts. But if you are your own God, how much are you really going to reveal to a stranger? And do you really want to change? Like, what is your incentive for doing the right thing? What is your incentive for fixing yourself? What is your incentive for telling the whole truth? Because if you really want to change your life, you're going to change your company, which also means you have to talk to your friends and talk to your family. You have to tell the truth to the people that really know you. Why are you running to a therapist who doesn't know your wife, your kids, your children, your parents? What if we had real people around us? Maybe you don't need a therapist. But then you have to actually change. But if you actually change, you have to admit you're wrong. And who's going to tell you you're wrong if you're God? Nobody. Something else we've done, I did this in high school because I wanted to control myself, is I surrounded myself with losers. That way my guilt and shame didn't feel as bad, because we were all doing bad. We were all struggling. We were all getting drunk, getting high. We were all skipping school. We took turns getting suspended. If my friend was suspended, I would just skip school for a week, and we all just hung out at the crib because we were losers. Instead of hanging with the other kids who was getting straight A's and playing ball and going to college, that's too much like doing the right thing. That's responsibility, because all success comes with responsibility. So if I'm hanging out with losers, it's okay to be a loser because we're all losing. And there's so many of us, we just developed our own little clique instead of trying to do better. Like, I remember there was a time we hated on the kids that were doing good. You know, you regret that 20 years later. I'm 40 now. That was a mistake. But that's one of the ways we medicate ourselves. That's how we avoid the guilt and the shame. By hanging with other losers, then it doesn't feel as bad. If you surround yourself with successful people, you'll realize the gap. And that's when the guilt and the shame comes in. And then you have to change. And change is painful. Change is something we want to avoid. Another thing you do when you're God and you don't want to admit when you're wrong is you rewrite history. Because if I can rewrite history, I can create excuses. If I can rewrite history, I can blame other people. If I can rewrite history, then it's not my fault I'm in my current state. But if I'm happy playing this illegitimate game, I could also rewrite history and find an excuse for doing it. And then if I have the money, I can justify it. Yeah, I might be wrong. I might be lying, cheating, and stealing, but I'm driving a Range Rover and I got a 5-bedroom house. Is it really wrong if I'm being successful? Is it really wrong if I'm prospering? And then I stand up and thank God for it, even though I was lying, cheating, and stealing to get it. But if I'm God, it doesn't matter anyway. I just need to find a church to let me believe what I want to believe. That's another topic we'll talk about another time, because there are churches that let you believe what you want. Because some of these churches are just social clubs. Everybody's not spirit-led and everybody's not following the same God. And that's a whole nother topic we're going to talk about another day. But right now, we're just going to discuss pride. And I can talk about it because I've done it. I've been my own God before. And I've succeeded at it, but it didn't last long. And I've paid for it. Because when judgment comes, you can't avoid it. Mental health is an excuse we use to avoid accountability. Because anytime, when the guilt and the shame eventually takes over, when the anxiety and the worry takes over, because sooner or later your soul needs the real God, now we just use our mental health as an excuse for acting out of order. Because everybody has an excuse, because we always want control, and we will do anything not to change. That's one of our main problems with the human condition, is surrendering control and not letting God change us into what he wants us to be. So we create this illegitimate game. We create this matrix because I'm in full control. But the truth is, you're really not. But as long as you have your money, your car, your job, as long as you have your carefully crafted friendships, as long as we have our social clubs, we can hide ourselves from the truth as long as we can. But if we look at the increase in violence, the increase in drug abuse, the increase in therapy and counseling, I see billboards everywhere now. There's more counseling services than there are churches because everyone's going insane. Why are they insane? Because we're playing an illegitimate game and we don't want the truth. Eventually, it's going to crumble. It's like the house of cards. Eventually, it's going to fold. But then when it folds, it's an explosion because nobody wants to accept it. And, you know, we can just look at our marriages. Divorce rate 70%. Kids we see it. The game ain't right, but we have to admit it. But when you admit you're wrong, you have to admit there's a real God and a real judge. And that's the part we want to avoid. Because for years, I avoided it myself. Until eventually, I had my own mental breakdown. Then I had to surrender. And then God showed me everything I lied about. He even showed me when it started. Because we got to get to the root of the thing if you want to fix it. Instead of focusing on the fruit, you have to get to the root. When you get to the root of the problem, you can change the fruit. So it's one of the other things that happens when you become your own God. You lose control of your emotions. And when you're living with anger and depression, you blame it on somebody else because I have to be right. As long as you're blaming it on other people, you're also surrendering accountability and responsibility. And by not admitting it's your fault, it's kind of reverse psychology because you're really saying if somebody else could control your emotions, then are you really God? Are you really in control? So we're really lying to ourselves, and it's deception. Because if I'm mad and it's your fault, then you have control over my feelings. So it's really self-defeating. But that's the deception that happens when you don't want the truth. We also have a way of puffing ourselves up. When I'm doing good, it's the real God favoring me. When I'm blessed and highly favored because I'm doing good right now. So we say God's blessing us, but not realizing if you actually read the Bible, we're supposed to surrender to God, which also means you're God's witness, which also means you're humble. So you want to be blessed and highly favored, but are we obedient? When I'm in control, my feelings determine the truth, and I don't have to change anything as long as I'm getting what I want. But have you considered how many dead bodies you left along that path? Do you ever consider how many people you're hurting? Do you ever consider the damage to yourself? Because I remember those years when I felt like I was winning, and I felt like I was on top. And then one day I went to the doctor, and I was almost 400 pounds. And I'm like, wait a minute, how did I lose control of myself? What happened to my discipline? And I was really embarrassed that I was almost 400 pounds. I couldn't understand it. But it happened kind of fast. But I was spoiling my kids. I was taking care of my wife. I was busy working. I was still reading books, going to church. How did I get up to 400 pounds? And how did it happen so fast? So that lack of discipline and the lack of obedience and the lack of self-control, that comes from trying to control your own environment, trying to be Superman, because you're going to fail somewhere, because we're not gods. We're people that need balance. We need rest. We need to eat right. We need to sleep. We need to pray. We need to surround ourselves with the right people. But when you're in full control, you're going to lack somewhere because you're not God. And right or wrong, when you don't read the Bible, when you're not praying, when you're not surrounded by spiritual people, we have a tendency to determine right or wrong ourselves. And then you don't take into account how it impacts other people. You're not thinking about the future all the time. When I determine what's right or wrong, it's going to be very easy to come into conflict with somebody else. So now it turns into I'm the alpha and I'm the leader, so now I just need to surround myself with other followers. As long as you're surrounding yourself with other followers, you're in control. So you're really not learning anything, because you just got yes men around you. You just got followers around you. You think you're whole, so you surround yourself with other dysfunctional, broken people because you can control them. And that becomes a problem, because now you're determining what's right or wrong, and you got these followers, so it's the blind leading the blind. And we know how that ends. Nothing good comes from that. You can't even have a mentor if you're in full control. So we put ourselves up on these pedestals to feel good. We're blinding ourselves from the damage we're causing. And then we have to remove anyone who doesn't agree with us. I still remember those arguments I used to have with people on Facebook. Because I would post something about God and they would get offended, because it's like, no, I can do this. I'm like, no, you can't. The Bible said, and people still want to argue over that because they're in control and nobody could tell me I'm wrong. Then they want to discredit the Bible. Well, if you're not following the real God, if you're not following the Bible, who are you following? So then they name their favorite human. So I'm like, okay, so you're going to put human ideas over what God said. So you'd rather follow other flawed people because you're going to worship something. If you take Jesus off the pedestal, you're going to replace him with something. And who are you going to replace him with? Is that person God? Is that person truly powerful? What is the condition of that person's life? Because you're going to follow somebody. That's just the way it goes. Even if you make yourself a God, you still got your ideas from somewhere. From some book, some college, some philosopher, some Buddha, Gandhi, somebody. If you take Jesus off the pedestal, you're going to replace it with somebody. Even if it's an athlete, you're going to replace him with somebody. And then when the illegitimate game, when God exposes it to you, when he tells you you're not God, because you're going to find out sooner or later. Either your marriage is going to fail, your health is going to fail, your money is going to fail you, your friends are going to abandon you. Something's going to fold. God forbid your health. I mean, I'm not speaking curses, I'm just speaking from experience. Sooner or later, life's going to fold and you're going to realize you're not a God. The illegitimate game is going to come to an end. Then what? You're going to swear the devil cursed you, but no, it was the devil leading you the whole time. And you built this fantasy land, and now your fantasy is coming to an end. So now what? Now we have to face the truth. Now we have to repent. Now we have to change our behavior. Now we have to change our friends. We have to change what's influencing us, the music, the movies, everything. Like I remember when I came to God and had my awakening, I had to throw away a lot of books. I threw away a lot of music. I had to change everything. So, what's the solution? The solution is, we can never go back. We cannot change history. We can never go back in the past. That's impossible. Sometimes we want to fast forward to the future to find out if the price is worth it. But you cannot change the past. We can influence the future by what we do today. But how do you get out of that game? How do you say, I'm not God and I need to get myself together? Like, what's the solution? The first thing you have to do is to choose the struggle and to choose the pain and to choose the change. Just choose the struggle. Stop searching for pleasure. Stop trying to feel good. Stop trying to be happy. Pursue a life of meaning. Pursue a life of purpose. Choose a life that'll benefit other people and pick other people up. Choose a life of inspiration. So instead of you being the leader and everybody else a follower, you become a follower of a mentor or someone successful. Follow them. Let them shepherd you, and then you shepherd somebody else. So now you're surrounded by people who could tell you when you're wrong. You're surrounded by people who could tell you what you need to do to get stronger and get better, which comes from humility. Because now somebody could actually tell you how to get stronger, smarter in education. It was like my mentor in 2007. He's the one that compelled me to go to college. And I ended up getting a master's degree because he kept bothering me. He kept pushing me, telling me do it. And I came up with 1,000,000 excuses, and he had 1,000,001 answers. He's like, no, you're going to college. He actually did the paperwork that got me enrolled. This man's not even my father. He was just a mentor. But he's the one that got me into college. I ended up staying for 6 years and got a master's degree. Every time I wanted to quit, he was like, nah. He used to call me every morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock, faithfully. Every Monday to Friday, he would call me. Yo, you got your work today? What's your action plan? What's your action plan? And sometimes I didn't even want to answer the phone. I thank God I did, and I thank God for that, man, now. Getting a master's degree, that was big. But you have to choose the struggle. You have to have a life of meaning and purpose, not a life of pleasure. Because every time you look for pleasure, you're going to take the easy way out. You're going to become a manipulator. You're going to become a liar. You're going to become lazy because you just want to feel good. Choose the struggle. The struggle produces strength. Strong people don't need to manipulate others because your integrity speaks for you. Your reputation improves. Strong people don't need to manipulate because you are who you said you are. And then you have stats to prove it. You have accomplishments to prove it. No one could take that master's degree from me. That's real. Nobody could take my house from me. I really bought that house. Strong people don't need to manipulate. And because I got it working, the government can't even take it. When you lie, cheat, and steal, you can't sleep at night because you're waiting for the feds to come. Because you were stealing, you were lying, you cheated on your taxes, and you know sooner or later you're going to be discovered. So you can't even sleep in peace. But when you have integrity, nobody can touch you. Another solution is to learn to be alone. It's okay to think for yourself, and it's okay to make mistakes. Learn how to be alone. When you're always seeking validation, you're always going to be exposed to other people who can manipulate you and hurt you. If you're always seeking validation, you're going to stop thinking. And then you're just going to accept what everybody else is doing, and that's how you got involved in the illegitimate game in the beginning. You were afraid to be alone. You saw everybody over there wilding. You saw everybody over there stealing. You saw everybody over there hustling, and you wanted to do it. Just be alone. God created you for a specific purpose. Just be alone until he tells you what to do. Think for yourself. Let them criticize you. Once you win, they're going to come back and ask you how you did it, and you could tell them God did it. And even if you're following God, it's okay to make mistakes because you're still not going to get it all right because you have to learn. So choose the struggle. Struggle produces strength. And be vulnerable. That's the only way you're going to get a mentor because you have to admit you need help. It's okay to admit you're not perfect. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, I don't know how. That's when the teacher comes. The teacher comes when the student is ready. Always surround yourself with people who are doing better than you. When my son told me he wanted to go to NFL, I hired an NFL trainer, a former NFL player. I never played college football. I never played pro football. So when my son said I wanted to go to NFL, I found a former NFL player to train him. That's the only way to get better. You have to humble yourself, ask for help, and find people who did it. I can't take my son to the NFL because I never did it. So I hired him an NFL trainer. But you have to be vulnerable and admit, I don't know. One well-timed I don't know will save you a lifetime of heartache and pain. Because when the student is ready, the master appears. But you have to admit, I don't know. As long as you say, I got it, and I'm God, nobody's going to be willing to help you because you're God and God don't need help. Learn how to admit you're a failure. If you messed up, admit it. God is always going to have somebody there. Like the angels are here. They come in the forms of humans most of the time. If you just admit you failed, you're going to get all the help you need. But your pride won't let you. So you're left alone to struggle. And you're left alone and you can't even get up because there's nobody there to pick you up because you won't admit you failed. Learn how to stare at yourself in the mirror. Can you stand and look at yourself in the mirror for 5 or 10 minutes without crying? If you can look in the mirror without crying, if you can look in the mirror and be proud of what you see, that's when you're done cooking. Because God knows how to put you in that oven and just turn the heat up to get that contaminants out of you. That's how they purify gold. They turn the heat up. Sometimes God's going to put you in that oven. Just think about that. Can you look in the mirror and be proud of yourself? Are you happy? There was a time period when I refused to look at myself in the mirror. There was a time where I wouldn't even take pictures. Then when I got right with God, I had no trouble looking at myself in the mirror because I wasn't ashamed and guilty anymore. I wasn't doing dirt anymore. That anxiety and fear was gone. Another part of the solution is to learn how to never blame another human being for your current condition. You know you deliver, and you know you're mature, and you know you're strong when you don't blame other people. Put your life in a position where you never blame anybody else. Learn how to accept extreme responsibility. Everything that goes wrong is your fault. You said you want to be God anyway, so start taking the blame. And one of the major keys, I can never say this enough, I'm learning how to live this myself. This is a law I made with my children. Never tell a lie. Never tell a lie. And the first time you tell a lie, go back and start over. Go back and admit it was a lie. Whoever you told it to, go back and tell them, yo, that was the wrong information. I apologize. Never tell a lie. That's the greatest way to sleep in peace. That's the greatest way to remove all anxiety, fear, and worry. That's how you get off your medication. Never tell a lie. Every time you lie, you fragment your own mind. You're creating your own matrix. You're creating your own maze. Now you can't even walk straight because you told so many lies. If you do the right thing, you might get exposed. You don't even know you're lying no more. I remember back in the day when I was single, I used to have so many nicknames, lying to so many girls. They would call me on the phone and I would tell them the wrong name because I was just lying to everybody, trying not to get caught. I mean, that's just stupid. And then when I was actually with the women, I wasn't even enjoying myself because I was creating all these different characters. Just be yourself. When you live a life with no lies, all your anxiety and fear is gone. But that goes back to change, because when you start telling the truth, the first thing that's going to happen is your friends are going to start disappearing. Because now the real you's coming out and you can't be with these people anymore. So be ready to endure the change. And get a support group. I always say 4 quarters is better than 100 pennies. You only need 4 good friends. Get 4 good friends in your life. Make sure they're God-centered people. You only need 4. Because the more time you spend with those people, you're going to encourage each other, you're going to make money together, you're going to pray together, you're going to go to church together. And your life makes more sense now because you actually have more time to spend with God because you only got 4 friends and not 100 people. Because you still got to get time with God in prayer and your family. You got 100 friends, you're being pulled in so many different directions, your life's going to be out of order. You don't need 4 friends. You don't need 4. Read the Bible every day, pray every day. When you're praying, you're going to get to the root of your fears, because when did it all start? Like, at what age did you start playing this game? At what age did you start lying? At what age did you hide from who you really were? Because I still remember when I wanted to play the saxophone. It was 40 years. I need to get back to it. But at what age did you kill the real you? Get to the root of that. And when you spend time with God, he's going to show you. And the major thing, we're going to end here. I could talk about this forever, but we're going to have more time for the next one. But the major thing is, who told you were God? Like, that's the root of it. Who told you that? Who told you were in control? Who told you could be in control? Who told you were in control of your life? Who told you didn't need the real God? Find out where that negative root came from. Could have been the devil, could have been a song, could have been a movie, could have been anything, could have been another person who helped you get involved in that illegitimate game. Who turned your heart from the real God? Sometimes we forget that old trauma. Sometimes we forget that old pain. Then we spend our whole lives running from it. We get to the root of the matter. Like, when did it start? Because I know when mine started, and we could talk about that another time. But find out, when did it start for you? When did the lie start? When did you decide to turn your back on God and to play the other way? Just think about that. Till next time, peace.